before we will hear more from the speakers, I would like to officially, so to say, welcome you all to this month IDG gathering. My name is Hannah, and with pleasure, I want to give you all a very, very warm welcome. Welcome to the Inner Development Goals. We are a non-profit open source initiative committed to fostering inner development towards more sustainable futures. And we do that in a co-creative way. So that's why we are super excited to having you all here with us today in order to grow and learn together. So thank you all very much for joining. I'm very excited today because this topic is really touching me, the topic that we are touching today. It's the arts as a powerful tool for inner development, how creative engagement can bring the inner development goals to life. And I'm very happy that we have partnered up for this topic with the wonderful International Teaching Artist Collaborative, ITAC, which is the first global network of artists working in community and educational settings to create positive social impact. You will hear a little bit more about that later. But first, I would like to say thank you to Madeline McGirk, who is the Managing Director of ITAC, and who, with so much passion and love, designed this gathering today, asked the speakers and artists to join us here, and she will also be moderating and leading us through. So thank you very much, Madeline, for all your effort that you put into this. And a lot of gratitude, of course, also goes out to our speakers, our wonderful speakers today, three amazing artists. Ines Sanguinetti from Argentina, Chen Alon from Israel, and Sangeeta Isvaran from India. Thank you for sharing your art and your teachings today with us, and I can't wait to hear more. And I will now hand over to you, dear Sangeeta, to help us arrive a little bit more into this IDG gathering on arts and creativity. Enjoy.
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. I thought we could start with an Indian tradition where we honor the earth before we start practicing our art form. The earth is what unites us. We stand together, and without our mother, this earth, we are nothing. We come from her and we go back to her. So can we bring our palms together? Just gently rub, right? Try to sense the heat coming in. And then take a deep breath. Nice deep breath. And relax your face. Relax your face. Can I see some smiles? Some positive energy? And think of your palms as this beautiful little flower that's going to bloom little by little, one petal after another. And when the flower has bloomed, imagine this flower spreading your essence throughout the space that we are in, real and virtual. And can we touch the floor? If you're seated, it's fine. Just touch the floor in whatever sense and touch your eyes. Really, a big thank you, big gratitude to the earth, our mother. Thank you.
Thank you, Sangeeta. And before we dive into today's session, where I introduce myself and what's going to happen and who's talking about what, I know Ines has another exercise just to bring us more into the conversation and the topic that we'll have today. So Ines, if you could take us from.
Thank you, Sangeeta. I love the breeze, the blooming flower, the earth. And again, my eyes. I love you so much. So to continue to go, together with Sangeeta, we will do an exercise, a very simple exercise, a creative exercise, because by the end of it, we're going to have, after Han finishes, a poem, a collective poem coming from Edinburgh, India, Tel Aviv, Buenos Aires. And this exercise is going to be done with a Padlet. Now see that Luli, that is my friend from Argentina, together with me in the conference, is putting a link for the Padlet in the chat and also in the screen. As you see, the game is about unlocking doors. But every exercise has its steps. You should be thinking in unlocking doors, but not in general. In your body, which are the doors you would like to unlock in your body? Which are the doors you would like to undoor in your intimate relationships? Could be family, friends, in your work. If you work in a university, in my work at the university, if you work in an NGO, in my work in my NGO, in my city, whatever it is, in my country, or in this whole world, planet, yes? And when you think of opening doors, never, never, never do it in general. That's not love. You go precisely to the space you want to open. You see there's a cross there. In that cross, you just write your testimony, and every one phrase should start in the same way. I want to open the door of, and then name your city, the city in your actually now, or the city that represents you. I'm going to show my example and then you go. I want to open the door to fear of emotions, to end oppressions. Yes? But you can also say you publish there, no? And that's it. If you want to go it again to another door in another space of yours, you go again to the cross. And for example, I'm saying I want to open the door of my melancholy to love again, to have the chance to love again. Publish, and that's it. Go for it now. Yes, Stockholm, very precise, yes. Yes. If you remember, name your city. Lovely. Compassion in Nashville. Conversations in Stockholm. Yes. Good work. It's running. It's flowing. It's not these awful screens. Now we are together in the doing. Do we think it's enough, Luli? We have enough? Anna? Okay. Madeline, your turn.
Thank you, Ines. That is going to be a really fantastic thing to circle back to towards the end of our session and see what we've collectively created there. But to get us started, I want to share a little bit more about our organisation, about the work that we're doing, how it relates to the inner development goals, and what today's session is going to really look at. So, thank you, Ines, for sharing that. Thank you, Sangeeta, for our welcome. Thank you to the IDG teams for opening this space to us, and to all of you who have logged in to be with us on this call. My name is Madeline McGirk. I'll be moderating and facilitating this call, which focuses on the arts as a powerful tool for inner development, how creative engagement can bring the inner development goals to life. I have the pleasure of speaking to you today as the Director of ITAC, or ITAC, depending on where you are in the world, which is the International Teaching Artists Collaborative. It's the international network for people who undertake social change work through the arts. We are made up of more than 5,000 practitioners from more than 45 countries. We have 5 national hubs, and we are just growing really quickly. On a personal level, I'm delighted to be here making this link between teaching artistry and the IDGs more explicit. I had the pleasure of attending the recent conference in Stockholm in October, and what struck me was just how really aligned the principles and goals of teaching artistry are with the IDGs and the framework. And it feels like there's an enormous amount of potential in bringing these two communities closer. Artists are working in different settings all over the world to bring about capacity building and inner development. And I'm happy to be here with some amazing colleagues today representing those voices and connecting with you. So let me take a step back for a minute. And for those who are new to the concept, just explain a little bit what I mean when we talk about teaching artistry and socially engaged arts. So teaching artistry is an entire sector of people working, I would suggest, in almost every city in the world to use arts as a tool for social transformation. The goal of this workforce is not to create more artists, although that can happen. It is to use arts as the intervention method to achieve other more socially driven goals. So this can look like dance as a way to rehabilitate child soldiers and help them explore bodily autonomy again as they reintegrate back into communities. It can be theatre as a way to challenge assumptions and explore different perspectives in polarized communities. It can be music as a way to communicate non-verbally in spaces where marginalized voices struggle to be heard. And it can be visual arts as a way to document and reflect on trauma and begin healing processes. Teaching artistry is not the same thing as being an art teacher, although there can be overlap. It is its own sector devoted to unpacking social issues through artistic mediums in order to achieve inner development. So today I'm happy to welcome some true experts from our sector who'll share more about their own work as it relates to IDG competencies and share their perspectives on how artistic methodologies can bring about societal and personal change. In the words of Raz Salvarita, who is one of our commissioned climate artists working in the Philippines with marginalized communities to tackle hopelessness and regain agency, environmental problems are emotional, environmental solutions are technical, and environmental decisions are political. Our approaches aim to utilize creativity to engage communities in the emotional development work which needs to be done in order to address and access and implement technical solutions which aim towards policy change. So only by activating the agency, understanding, and hopefulness in communities in relation to their ability to create change can sustainable solutions occur. So this movement, using arts as an entry point to tackle conversations differently, to rehumanize ourselves and others, and to reconnect with our inner compass, is a movement which is massive and global. And this practice pops up in towns and cities all over the world, usually completely independently, because someone just notices the power of the art that they're creating and engaging people in that. And our job is to gather and uplift these amazing pockets of practice and help deploy them in spaces where they're useful. So hopefully by now, you're starting to notice for yourselves the sizable overlap between what the IDG framework encourages us to focus on and the outcomes of teaching artist-led work. So I would argue the entry point to almost any development process is getting outside of your comfort zone and approaching things from new angles in order to see them differently, to expand our view and our toolkit for change making. And the arts has something unique and precise to offer in that space. So I'd now like to hand you over to our panelists for today, who each bring their own personal life experience, skill set, and approaches to inner development work in their communities. It's possible we could touch on some topics you find challenging or uncomfortable, and so I'd like to remind us all in these moments that I hope we can practice to live the IDG skills when we listen and reflect on new perspectives and complex realities. So with that being said, I will pass to our first speaker, Ines Sanguinetti, who will share more about the transformative work of her organization, Crear Vila Peña.
Thank you, Madeline, for your warmth. So here I am again, where I'm going to speak now about our doing in Argentina. I'm Ines. Luli is part of Crear Vila Peña, and she's editing this magical work we're going to see by the end. And now I'm going to show you a short video, but it is in Spanish, so I'm going to be speaking on top of that. And then we have some other showing. So we can start with the video. I mean, it's dreadful for me because I don't speak regularly English. So this is like, okay, cut and paste thoughts in English. So let's start with the video. At Crear Vila Peña, we are all about here in Argentina and in Latin America, we are all about opening doors as we did to nurture our creativity. And we do it in many spaces. We do it in community centers, we do it in public schools, we do it in the same streets, we do it in health, mental health spaces. And this is something that often, I mean, creativity is often not available. It gets stifled in the systems we live in Argentina, and I think a little bit in the world. We've been at it for 20 years now, creating spaces and teaching methods that invite everyone to see creativity as a human trait, not just something for art experts or cultural elites. The words creation and creativity have long been monopolized by fine arts or cultural administrators who know how to take profit of creativity or of art, but we do something else. Culture and creativity aren't about exclusive to a few. Creativity is the natural aspect of our main and central human activity. Since 2012, I've been developing a playful and creative methodology called Entornos Creativos, which stands for creative environments. I'm a dancer, I'm a choreographer. I work with musicians in the past and now, but this is something else. This is making creativity available for people that don't name themselves as musicians or singers or actors, whatever. And this is something that aims to make a revolution in learning, in physical learning, in emotional learning, in social learning, no? And it's about transforming our cultural mindset empowering people with fewer opportunities, people working and living in shanty towns, people being vulnerable because mental health problems, depression, anxiety, to develop their own creativity, skills for a better life. Inspired by the success of doing this in 3 community cultural centers around shanty towns in Argentina, we shift our work from these cultural centers to work inside formal education and mental health spaces. We've seen that what we did in the very humble cultural centers was something very much needed to scale up in every learning space to change the life of thousands of young people today. The point is that in spite of the doing, for example, when we had a cultural center, Romina Sosa, a girl that was abused, that lives in a very shanty town, she started to dance together with us. And now she is a choreographer, but more than that, she's a social leader running the type of cultural centers that Cara La Pena stopped doing. When we play a theater piece in 350 schools, public schools around Argentina, to prevent alcohol in young people, perhaps a teacher comes in and says, hey, after pandemic, I've been drinking a lot, too much, but I can never say this in this school, but I can say to you now. Or 3 young people come and say, we are suffering mental distress in a way that we are actually thinking committing suicide. Thank you for the piece, because the piece is about that. So it's not only me. So despite our efforts, we usually feel that we are completely unheard. That's why we decided to interpret and to evaluate our doings through the IDG's framework that I'm going to show now. So now, without me speaking, you're going to just be reading the testimonies of the people around how they name being, how they name thinking, how they name relating, how they name collaborating, how they name acting. We go with that? You just read. Come inside this enjoyment. Well, Madeline, did I run out of time? Or I have like 1 more minute?
Amazingly, we are running early and you have 4 more minutes.
Good. So, this is not, I mean, this is such a common sense. It's not creative environment, it's not Cariarva La Pena, it's not Argentina, it's everywhere. It's Sangeeta, you're gonna see her, it's Ken, it's the world. Yesterday, trying to get ready for this conference, I listened to a talk by the magnetic David Lynch. I suppose you know who David Lynch is, no? The famous, he's very famous for his mind-bending films like Blue Velvet, no? Or Twin Peaks. And he was masterfully inspiring us, saying this idea. And this idea is about what IDGs wants to measure. So who gives a shit for speaking in metaphors in our world? We do, of course. But thanks to IDGs, we can say that this ocean of pure, vibrant consciousness inside each one of us, that by modern physics, they call it the unified field. IDGs are trying to measure the unified field. Why? Because if you go inside the unified field, you find the qualities of it: bliss, intelligence, universal love, energy, peace. And it's not about the intellectual understanding of this. It's about diving and unfolding the unified field. When you do that, there are no enemies. People are looking like friends. So we want to enlighten this, the enjoyment of the doing, the enjoyment of the unified field. Thank you.
Thank you, Ines, and thank you for sharing. I would encourage anyone who has more time, we only have such a short time to hear from our speakers, but Cariarva La Pena's website and body of work is extensive, and there is so much in there about how the practical application of the work and of the workshops is relating and being fed by the IDG Summit and vice versa, IDG framework and vice versa. And so for anyone curious about that connection, I do encourage you to follow up and read about those case studies. For now, I will take us over to a different art form, a different country, a different perspective, to my colleague and friend and someone whose work I just admire greatly, Sangeeta Isvaran.
Kandrin kuralai கேட்டு கனிந்து வரும் பசும் பால் ஒன்றுக்கும் மஞ்சாத என்னுள்ள துயரம் தீர்க்க. When a calf calls out, its mother comes running to soothe it. When I call, when I shed tears, who is there to listen? This poem from the 18th century is timeless. Can you recall a moment when you felt there was so much pain in your heart that you couldn't express and that you were silently calling out, maybe even screaming for help? You could have been a child. It could have been just yesterday. It doesn't matter. So much of our pain and suffering remains suppressed because we are just told, this is life, let's get on with it. We need to get food on the table. We need to get our jobs done. We go and we drink and we try to distract ourselves with entertainment. And we don't pay attention to the care we need to give ourselves, and that we need to listen in the world around. For this, we need art. We don't need to be great artists. You can sing in your bathroom. That's fine. Makes you happy, right? Well, might not make your neighbor so happy. It makes you happy. Art is a primary expression of emotion and love of our being on this earth. This is something I fundamentally believe and I practice because I had the good fortune to learn dance since I was 5 years old with an amazing teacher whom I can never thank enough. In India, we always start by expressing our gratitude to our teachers because they have shown us a path and a way to be. Before I go on, I want to show you just one core element of what I do in India, and then I will explain why I feel the traditions that I work with are truly path-breaking and carry ideologies that can transform us inside and outside. Yeto hasta tato drishti, yeto drishti tato manaha, yeto manaha tato bhavo, yeto bhavo tato rasaha. Where the hand goes, let the eye follow. Where the eye goes, let the mind follow. And where the mind goes, let the heart follow. And then you will have understanding. This is the first verse of a 12th century text that all of us learn in India. If you wake me up at 2 in the morning, I'll be like, Yato hasta tato drishti, yato drishti tato manaha. We learn it by heart. But this particular verse is saying something very important. It's part of our pedagogy. Where the hand goes, there is a physical movement, the eye follows. Then you have a sensory implication because without our sense doors, we cannot receive information. The minute we receive that information through our sense doors, the brain analyzes it, right? Your logical thought process is thinking, is this a flower? Oh, is this garbage? You're trying to find meaning. And then your heart comes into play. And then you have understanding. So you need the physical, the sensory, the analytical, and the emotional all together to make sense of this world, to relate to each other. But what does our education system do? 2 1s are 2, 2 2s are 4, 2 3s are 6, 2 4s are 8, 2 5s are 10. You just are flooded with information, and science is great. I love my family is full of scientists, and the world we have built today is largely a product of all the knowledge we have gathered. But that is not the solution to our interrelational issues. When you're looking at conflict, explaining to someone rationally what conflict is, that's not going to work. It comes from here. People are angry. People are scared. People build demons in their head. They demonize others. We have identities that are built on our emotional understanding and sensory understanding, physical understanding of the world that logic cannot solve. I run an institution called Katradi, and we are a bunch of artists that work across more than 30 countries. We work mainly in India, and we work with all kinds of communities. We work with children, we work with street kids, with orphans, we work with sex workers, landmine victims, we work with old people, we work with women and gendered issues. And the core idea is that we use the different levels of integration, physical, emotional, sensory, intellectual, and intuitive. We use different ways to build spaces that are safe, that communities in conflict can come together and find their own path to peace. So our programs could be directly related to disasters, like for example, right now in Manipur, nobody talks about it, but there is a war happening. There is ethnic genocide happening. Communities are killing each other. And we are going there, one, to bring aid because we can move freely. As I come from a different part of India, I look very different. So when I go in there, people know that I'm not from this particular ethnicity, and I can travel to bring aid to different communities. Sometimes you have to walk for hours because we have war zones, right? But every soldier that stands along that path, every civilian you meet is a person. So as an artist, I have learned how to make eye contact. I have learned how to maybe give a hug where it's needed. I've learned to sit and listen and document the experiences of people, to facilitate groups, whether it is with meditation or with games or with educational tools, to bring a little bit of education, of solace to people over there. So why the arts? Because the techniques that we have help us be present. For example, working in refugee camps, I work with women. Camps are very unsafe spaces, and sexual abuse is very common when they're displaced. There are more than 75,000 displaced people. We work on just making eye contact. So I do it through stupid Bollywood songs. Look, 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 Are Baba, look. Oh, my darling, give me a look. So I'm just asking them to move their eyes in particular ways, make it big. Can we all try it? Come on, everybody, big eyes. Can I see big eyes? Oh my goodness. Hannah, lovely. Ooh la la. Daniela, nice. Big eyes. Small eyes. Can I see small, small eyes? Big eyes. Big. My goodness, nice. Big ears. Come on, everybody. Channel your inner elephant. You know, it's an Indian woman talking to you. You're the land of elephants. Big ears and big heart. We start every session with this. Can we open our eyes wide and find one thing that might be commonplace, but that can trigger your wonder? Maybe it's just a photo of your child as a baby, and you're like, wow, look how she's grown. Can we look with small eyes at each other and wonder, what is this issue that's separating us? How can we figure it out? Can we use our analytical brain? Can we open our ears and listen to each other and listen with an open heart, without judgment? That's how you create a space almost instantly, where then people can come together. We play, we jump about, we roll on the floor, we laugh, we do all kinds of different games to trigger people into dropping the barriers, right? For example, there's a game where we run around and then I call out a number. If I say 2, everybody has to get into groups of 2. If I say 5, people have to get into groups of 5, right? It's a very common game. There are different versions across the world. Sometimes I say one thing, groups of 5, I'm like, groups of 5, you have 10 feet, only 2 can touch the ground. Otherwise, you have to do 40 push-ups. So people are then climbing on top of each other, and you make instant friendships because you have to literally smell the other person. Their body odor becomes yours, right? So at this point, your physical barriers are loosening. And then after 1 hour of play, what we call bridging the gaps, we have different games to bridge gaps on different levels. Then we sit and we talk about, what is this conflict? Why? What do you have in your heart? Say it. I was working in Maluku, Indonesia, in between 2001 and 2006, and there was this huge conflict between Christians and Muslims. It went on for years and years, and every time it would subside, something would trigger it, and boom, you were off. So we started working with groups of youth. I advertised the classes as Bollywood classes because they wouldn't come if you said conflict resolution, but they came. And after a few days, the kind of friendships and sharing that was developed was just amazing. One kid said, I asked them, what can you not forget of the past few years? And he says, I can't forget the screaming. I can't forget the screaming because they were taught to kill people and then take the blood in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit by religious heads who were using these children to kill, right? And they were heroes in the community. But there is something within that says, this is not right. This is not my truth. This is not it for me. And that child finally opened his mouth. He was 11 or 12. And when he spoke, that was the trigger for that youth group to take it to a different level. And many of them went on to become youth ambassadors of peace. And, after years of work by many different associations, mostly civil associations, Maluku has come out of it. There are many, many reasons why we do the work we do. But one of the most fundamental reasons, positive reasons, is a very simple word, and we all know it, and it's love. We all seek love and connection. I was doing this workshop with sex workers, and I was wearing a sari, they were in saris. So I was asking them, I was like, I mean, you're in a sari, I'm in a sari. How do guys know you're available? How do you, advertise? Because you don't have a road where they stand, you don't have a red light area that doesn't exist in my city. So they said, "Nalla ponana kannala paaka matanga." A good woman will not look at you in the eye, at a man in the eyes. Just that. There are so many restrictions for women. You have to be modest. You have to keep your head down. You have to keep your eyes down. You don't make eye contact. That simple phrase led to an entire body of work that I developed from my art form, which privileges eye contact. Because even before I stretch my hand out to shake yours, or I do this, my eyes meet yours and a connection is made. And how powerful is that? I'm trying to see all these beautiful faces on my screen, and we are separated by oceans, right? Whether I'm seeing someone like with a little smile, and I know, okay, that there is some connection happening. So there are many things artists can do below the surface that lay the space for all kinds of transformations. Our facilitators, one of them is quadriplegic and currently working with the education system. Another is working, she's one of the first female martial artists with the big sticks. And we are building a gender module to work with young girls and teenagers and young women on safety and empowerment, gender empowerment. We are working with police systems, with health systems. During COVID, we went from village to village performing. We made the coronavirus into this demon, and we talked about all the different ways we have to work together to subdue this demon, right? But that story was not about just giving facts to people and trying to combat fake news. That story was to address the fear within people. Because as artists, you just don't talk about facts. I can just, print a flyer and start distributing it on COVID. Does that work? We are working with people with leprosy now. And it's ridiculous. We are in 2024 and we still have leprosy, which is a completely curable disease. And there is only one reason we have it. And that reason is shame and fear. The stigma around leprosy is so high that nobody wants to report if they get a particular symptom. Your internal shame is so crippling that you would rather lose fingers than go to a doctor. It is a disease that has preyed on our mind. It should have been eradicated 50 years ago. The only thing stopping it is people don't want to talk about it. Mental health, what stops people from getting help? Shame and fear. There is enough research to show that shame is one of the worst conditions of humans, of the human condition, right? How many of you can think of at least one thing you didn't try because you were worried what people would think of you? Come on, we can think of 100 things. We don't achieve our full potential because we are shamed by the people around us. And that's why you need artists. You need creative expression. You need to come out and manifest and say, this is me, accept me as I am. And that individual plays into a community that becomes healthier, and that community ripples out into the world, right? In another workshop, again with sex workers, the same workshop, and those women just taught me so much. It was amazing. I was 24 and I was like, whoa, I wanted to make a mosaic of words. So I told them each one has to write a word on a piece of paper, which is the most important word to you. And then we would then pick it out, shuffle it and read it. They all wrote love. In Tamil, it's anbu. So I sort of stuck to my idea. I was 24. I was not that experienced. I was wondering what the hell I can do. I said, no, you have to write different words. We have to make this into a poem. And okay, so now I'm banning the word love. You have to write more words down. So everybody started writing again. And we open, we find only synonyms of love. Love, affection, caring, passion, desire, kindness, anbu, natpu, pasam, nesam. They were just premam, preeti. They were all just Tamil words 100 different words to say love. And these are women who've been so badly abused, trafficked, and misused in their life in the name of sex and love. But they knew what they wanted, what all of us want. I work with scientists. I work with 3 very, very amazing organizations in conservation, the Nature Conservation Foundation. These are some of the top scientists in India. The Snow Leopard Foundation, which is international, Wildlife Conservation Society. And the first time I went, I was like, I just felt like, what am I going to do with scientists? You know, these are guys with PhDs. They're so educated. They talk about animal behavior. They know, what do they need? They needed to have inclusive teamwork. Like one scientist said, I know about elephants. I don't know that much about humans and how they behave. So I need you to come and work with my team to stop human-elephant conflict. You are good at community work. So you need to come in and help us with that. And then when we went in, we found out the problem wasn't the elephants and the problem wasn't with the villagers. The core of the problem was in our team that was there. All of them were upper caste. Most of them were men. Actually, no, all of them were men. It was the most ridiculous thing. It was the least diverse team possible. I told them, if you want to work in communities, you need to have a woman in your team who can work with women too. You know, you need to have people from different castes and colors, and you need to have different genders. So the entire organization took a step back to look at the composition of their organization. And then women started talking about women scientists, highly educated, about how much abuse and oppression they suffer in a patriarchal society. People of different genders spoke up. People from lower castes spoke up. People who don't speak English well and have a stronger accent, they spoke up saying, we don't get as much respect as someone with a swanky English accent, right? And then we figured out scientists are humans and they grow up in this messed up society and they're reflecting the same ideals. So now I work with corporates. We enforce the POSH Act. It's Prevention of Sexual Harassment of Women in the Workplace. So many artists are coming on board to be external representatives for ensuring health among women. We are trying to see what is well-being on a larger scale. And right now with ITAC, I'm doing this really pet project. It's like my baby. And that is looking at all the systems, mainstream systems that artists are engaging in. And nobody knows about it. Artists are enriching so many different systems, whether it's the health system, education system, police system, prison system, conflict, mediation. We are doing so much of this. And very well too, you know. And that's my cry out to you. We need to listen to the cry of the heart. We need to be vulnerable with each other. We need to say stop when there's just too much happening. And I know I'm going to be handing it over to Hen. And what Hen is right now going through, I cannot imagine. I live for it, maybe I live in conflict maybe a few weeks, few months in a year. And he is living it now in a way that I cannot imagine. And I know that being who he is, it is his artistic process. It's him as a human being without compartmentalization that is stepping up to what the situation is requiring of him, right? Non-transaction. For me, the traditional arts represent love, represent positivity. They generate so much of energy. We question social injustices. We do performances on all kinds of different injustices that we see around us. We're a mirror to society. Most importantly, you can't put a price on it. The most precious things in our lives are the ones that we can't put a price or tag on. And that's what the arts represent for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sangeeta. That was beautifully, beautifully said. And I think it's such an important reminder that where logic or language fails, because the root of a problem is essentially emotional and internal, those are the moments that require different methods of engagement. Those are the moments where we have to step beyond discussion and debate that has been going on forever and failing each time, and move into new ways of relating and collaborating and being and thinking, and that the arts are a vehicle to do that when they are thoughtfully constructed and scaffolded and ethically done. So thank you, Sangeeta. Your work is always an example of how that can be put into practice in challenging circumstances.
Madeline, can I just tell everybody that I want you guys to like send just this whole kiss out. I love all the kissing. So mwah, mwah. Can you also send these amazing kisses out into this beautiful group here? Mwah. Love you all.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Now, that is a perfect segue into our next speaker, who understands on a visceral level what it means to practice the IDGs and the arts in challenging circumstances. So I hope you'll join me with your full IDG selves as we listen and reflect on the perspectives and complex realities and the role the arts can play in bringing about new ways of relating. So please join me in welcoming the just amazing Dr. Chen Alon.
Thank you. Thank you, Madeline, and thank you so much, Sangeeta, for such a wonderful, and Ines, of course, for such a beautiful presentations that set, I think, the atmosphere here for some hope, some optimism, although I'm speaking to you from Tel Aviv, and we are, as they've said, in the midst of a war. When we scheduled this session, I was hopeful that I won't be able, or I won't need to talk about the current situation or the war that is going on here, and it's still on 4 months. We're still in the war, but in order to know who I am or to present myself, I will have to present who I was in the past. So there is a very short article from the New York Times that is very recent, from just a week ago, that was done on our group, our movement, Combatants for Peace, just to show how we are actually the only ones between the river and the sea, so to speak, in Israel and Palestine, who are holding on to hope right now. And it's not easy, as you will see. And then I will present how we get to this point with arts. So I will give some examples. So Christian, maybe we can start with sharing the video.
כל תא שלי בגוף יודע מה זה אלימות, זה לא קונספט תיאורטי בשבילי.
كنت أعرف الإسرائيليين في 3 أشياء: جيش ومخابرات ومستوطنين. وبالنسبة للفلسطينيين 3 مظاهر، هذول مظاهر عنيفة ومظاهر
خير
صباح النور. صباح النور، عيون كيفك؟ على مساء.
ما שלומך? התגייסתי בסוף 87, תחילת 88, זה היה בדיוק האינתיפאדה הראשונה. והיה איזה דיסוננס כזה בין זה שדמיינתי את עצמי על טנקים בגבול, גן על גבולות מדינת ישראל, לבין מה שבעצם עשיתי בפועל, שזה היה הרבה מאוד מעצרים, ירי של גז וכדורי גומי על מפגינים.
ما خليتش الطريقة اللي استعملت فيها العنف ضد الجيش. 16/4/89 استشهد أخوي ناصر. لحقوه تقريبا مسافة 50 متر، أطلق عليه رصاصة. وأمي فهي بتقول لي يعني أنا خسرت ناصر، بديش أخسرك كمان أنت.
معظم دورات التدريبية مع الطرف الثاني ما في حد بيعرف، يعني بس المقربون من جوا البيت، وهذا الإشي مناسب للمجتمع اللي عايشين فيه، أو أنت بتسوي تطبيع أو ممكن تتعاون معهم، وأنت هذا الإشي بخليه سيكرت.
אני מחפשת מקום שבו אני יכולה לעשות ולא להיות בשקט.
מפתיע להרגיש את עוצמות הכעס והזעם והרצחנות והנקמנות שאנחנו הרגשנו, אני הרגשתי ב7 באוקטובר, וחזרו לי ממש תחושות שאני בא לי לעלות על טנק, בא לי עכשיו להיות עם נשק. באיזשהו שלב במהלך היום הזה באמת אני מקבל טלפון מג'מיל, רק לשמוע את הקול של ג'מיל. פתאום מחבר עם רגע.
דיברנו מהלב, וחשבנו איך לשרוד התנועה שלנו, המקום שלנו, למרות את כל הכאב שיש.
אז כי אני רוצה להביע עמדה מורכבת יותר, אני הייתי לחמתי בעזה. הדעות שלי יותר ימינה מהבחינה המדינית. המסלול של הסרבנות הוא בכלל לא הדרך, אני מאוד מתנגד לזה, בשירות שעשיתי. ומאידך, בגלל שהחיים מורכבים, אז אני פה. כל פעם שאני מזדמן לי לפגוש פלסטינים שמוכנים לבוא ולדבר, אני מבחינתי עף על זה.
So this is the most recent encounters that we have done since October 17th, since the war started, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there is no art in it, but the fact that we manage to get to this point that everybody around us is collapsing, falling into hatred, dehumanization, violence, and so on. And there's a small community, binational community of Israelis and Palestinians who refuse to be part of this dehumanization, this hatred, this violence, is due to a journey of 18 years that I want to share some of it with you now in the few minutes that I have, that how we actually founded the movement was the realization of us that our personal story is a theatrical monologue, that we are actually our way, Israelis and Palestinians, that we went through previous generation. I'm a grandchild of, my grandparents were Holocaust survivors, and they taught my father the never again thing, that the implication of it was that we have to have an army, that we have to defend ourselves and so on. And my father fought in 2 wars, and I was joining the army with the dream of becoming an artist and an actor. And I had two dreams in my childhood. One is to follow my father's footsteps, to become a hero, to fulfill the inheritance of my grandparents, that the never again, to protect the only shelter that the Jewish people have. So it means to join the army and to become a major in the army. And the other one was to be an artist. That's something that I felt since I was a baby, that I'm an actor, I'm a theater artist, and so on. So in Israel, there's a mandatory service. I served 4 years in the army. I became an officer, but I realized that I'm not defending what the image that I have of defending my country was complexed by the work that I did in the occupation. And I will give you just one example. After I was released from the army, I went to an acting school, and I was accepted to a repertory theater in Israel and in Beersheba, which is a city in the south. And one night I was playing in Clifford Odets' play, Awake and Sing. It's an American play about a Jewish family in the Bronx in the Big Depression of 1929. And I was playing the revolutionary young guy of the family. And it was a main role in the repertory theater. And I was the protagonist of the play, saying to the family, it's not an economic depression. The problem is the system. We shouldn't just pass this depression and go on with our lives. We should change the system. And that night, I had an agreement with the theater. I was in reserve already. So we finished with the cathartic end of the play that, you know, the young guy is going to change the American system. And I'm wearing this 3-part suit with a tie in the Bronx, 1929. And the audience is applauding us with, you know, they are agreeing to change the system and the message of the play and so on. And I'm taking off the 3-part suit and I'm wearing my major uniform. And I'm going 45 minutes to the Gaza Strip and I'm serving in the checkpoint as a commander. And then I'm not allowing people to cross the checkpoint, and I'm doing all the activities that we were doing in the occupation back then in 98. And then I have a moment of, I call it a Stanislavskian moment, you know, that how the actor is working on a character. So here, an hour earlier, I was a protagonist, a hero of another story, saying and embodying the passion to change the system. And here I am standing in a checkpoint as a major, not allowing people to pass and so on. So and then I said, I have to integrate these two characters, the one on stage and the one in the reality, and to do something. And then I refused to serve the occupation. I was sentenced to jail for that. We founded a movement in Israel addressing the Israeli society with our message. And I started, I was very confused with the repertory theater and regular theater. I had an acquaintance with Augusto Boal's Theater of the Oppressed, the Brazilian theoretician and creator and director and writer. And I started to do theater with Jews and Arabs. And then we heard that there is a Palestinian parallel movement or group of Palestinians. I'm talking about 2003, 4, 5, a group of ex-Palestinians who were prisoners in Israeli prison, fighting with armed struggle against the occupation. And now in this, it's already the second intifada. They are refused to be part of the suicide attacks. They are refused to be part of the armed struggle, and they actually founding a movement of nonviolence in Palestine. We started to work together. It was very frightening at the beginning, as you can see in the documentary, disturbing the piece that was done on us. It's all depicted very well there. And they were thought that we are from the Mossad and we will actually try to make them collaborators. We thought that they are from the Hamas and they will try to kidnap us. But we had this intuition that was based on other conflict stories of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee and so on. And I offered as a theater person just to share our monologues, to share our transformation stories from violence to nonviolence, from previous generations, the inheritance of violence, how we grew up in households that justifies violence, and how we were traumatized by violence, either as perpetrators or oppressed. It doesn't matter if you are facing or confronting radical violence. And then the transformation, the individual transformation, for me, it happened through art or theater. And each one of us had his own way of transformation. And then the binational transformation, understanding that we won't reach peace and justice and so on uninationally, but we have to work together, or as we say it in theater, to base this peace and justice on dialogue. So we started to do this and this to share our monologues on stage or in a circle with this structure of transformation. And we found out that this stage that we are providing for ourselves is a way to take responsibility of who we were in order to create together this who we are collectively. And we started to move on I started to implement a lot of techniques by Augusto Boal that was founded in Brazil for homogeneous communities. And I started to develop this theory and practice of polarized theater of the oppressed. For example, we started in 2006 the first Israeli-Palestinian memorial ceremony. I've directed the first one and the last one last year. The first one was with 70, 80 people in a fringe theater in Tel Aviv. And the last one was in April 2003, almost a year ago, in the biggest park, Hayarkon in Tel Aviv, with 15,000 people, Israelis and Palestinians, 200,000 people online. And the idea there was that we have no aesthetics. It's like an aesthetic-less performance. No flags, no images, no videos, only monologues or testimonies on stage, black screen, no images at all, only the pain, the sorrow, and the agony, and the bereavement that we share together. And as I said, we started with 80 people, and it was exponential. Each year we have like 200 people, 500 people, 2,000 people, 8,000 people, until we got to the 15,000 last year, because there's a thirst for hope. And through the pain and the agony that we are sharing, through the humanity that we see, that we all share the same pain when we lost our beloved ones, and the justification of the war and the violence is only create more violence. And we understood that there is no military solution to our problem. There is only dialogue, reconciliation, rehumanization work that we do with theater and with art, that develops this trust between us, as you saw in the video, between me and Jamil. But we are a big, very big community, or binational community of Israelis and Palestinians who are opposing violence, opposing the justification of violence. And this is just one example. If I can just share one or two more examples how we've developed the usage of theater along the years. For, as I said, one path is, we call it the internal work that we do, the rehumanization, the dialogue, the reconciliation work that actually unpack the trauma. We all in Israel and Palestine are traumatized by violence. And as I said, after we have been transformed from violence to non-violence, it doesn't matter what was the specific event that we were part of. We are all post-traumatic, and theater has an amazing, it is an amazing medium to work on trauma, to unpack it, to rehumanize yourself in this situation. And the other path that we took with theater is actually an activist one, or a politicization of our mutual joint story. And that means we are strategizing by theater our non-violence community, our non-violence struggle against oppression, against the systems that is oppressing us to use violence, to justify violence, to, in our case, the occupation, and of course, the dehumanization in the Palestinian society that is allowing or justifying brutal attacks, as we saw on the 7th of October, or the Israeli retaliation on Gaza, and the mass killing that we are facing in the last few months. So we use a lot of techniques. Maybe I will give just one more concrete example to conclude, because I have so many examples. One of them is, maybe I will give one example that is an international one, that it will be relevant and will resonate here, as how we work with forum theater, for example, which is an interactive form of theater that Augusto Boal created in the 70s in the dictatorship of Brazil. And it's a very simple thing. It's based on a story, a personal story. We perform it to, in our case, binational audience. In the case of the tours that we have done, we perform our problem, our stories in front of international community. So I'll give you just one example. One of them was on a checkpoint, an Israeli checkpoint, that we perform a true story of a Palestinian trying to get from one point to another, being stuck in a checkpoint by Israeli soldiers. And he is trying to convince the soldier that his grandfather had a surgery, and he tries to cross the checkpoint, and the soldiers won't let him. So we allow the audience, in this case, binational audience, to replace the protagonist, the Palestinian young guy that try to convince the soldiers. And then we run the scene, and we ask me as a joker, as the facilitator, ask the audience to replace him. And one Palestinian guy say, I want to replace this guy. And we call it intervention. He replaced the character. He gets on stage, and he started to beat up the soldiers who were, the actors who played the soldiers were actually a mixture of Israeli and Palestinian actors. So they were both beaten by the Palestinian spect actor, because we don't accept the fact that theater is either actors or spectators. We call all of us spect actors. So he started to beat them up, and we all stopped him, and we said, there is no violence in theater. The intervention must be non-violence, because this is something that we are committed to. And I asked him, did you succeed with your intervention? And he said, I knew I won't succeed, but I wanted to show the Israeli audience here that this is the only way for us to use violence to preserve our pride. And then one Israeli woman said, I want to replace the character. And while he was beating them, I saw that all the Israelis were shocked by the true and actual violence of the spect actor, and all the Palestinians were laughing while he was doing this. So I asked him if he succeeded. He said, no, I wanted to preserve our pride in front of the Israelis here. And then an Israeli woman said she wanted to replace this character of the Palestinian. She replaced the character, and she didn't even try to convince the soldiers. She went on her knees, and she started to cry, to really cry with tears, and said, please let me pass my grandfather, and so on. And then all the Israelis were looking at her, and all the Palestinians were laughing and embarrassed from this intervention. So I said, did you succeed? She said, no, but I just wanted to show by my intervention to the Palestinians that violence is not an option, that even this ridiculous or even humiliating intervention is better, or a legitimate option. And so the thing is not to find solutions together, but to perform to each other how we perceive the situation, because 100% of the Palestinians said that beating up soldiers in a checkpoint is not violence. 100% of the Israelis perceive this intervention as violence. And while they are looking at the action and observing the intervention and listening to the response of the polarized responses in the audience, this is that created the base for an interaction, for a dialogue, for a humanization or rehumanization of the others. And then this is the departure point to start dialogue between the two collectives, between the two communities. And from there on, we perform a scenario, and from there on, we start the process through theater with other techniques that I don't have time to share with you now, but work for us to reach the point that when a terrible war like this is the one we are facing now is happening, after 18 years of practicing theater, various techniques of dialogue, reconciliation, and rehumanization, everything is collapsed around us. People are just fled with hatred and dehumanization, and our community hold on to humanity and to hope because we've trained ourselves that even in such horrible situation, we have partners, we have other human beings that are steadfast with us in this struggle, not to lose hope, not to lose humanity, and to stay together. So I'll stop here, and I hope we will have a few minutes to have a dialogue as we all, Ines, Sangeeta, and myself prayed for.
Wow. Thank you so much, Chen. Oh, thank you. It moves me every single time I hear your story. And I think that everyone in the room, I want to thank you for your listening too. I think all of us, I was watching the faces as you spoke, Chen, and I think every single person had a reaction and a moment and a reflection. So thank you. And also for reminding us of the power of personal stories to transcend the everyday and the entrenched and move us forward beyond that with something deeper and more substantial, which is an internal understanding and what all of us on this call are committed to working on and fostering in ourselves and others. So thank you. So we have a little time now. We've built in about just under 10 minutes, maybe closer to 5. For some Q&A, if anyone has any comments, questions that are popping up, I would really encourage you to drop them in the chat. It's amazing and rare for us to have all 3 of these speakers in one place and talking towards the same goals and points. So I would encourage you, if there was any point that you wanted to unpack a little more or understand, please do drop something in the chat. So I'll pause for a second and let you gather your thoughts and drop something in there. Well, Hen, there's some excitement to support your work, to help peace and health and equality. Thank you, everyone. There was a question, Hen, about when you said you perform to each other. What did you mean? So maybe people who aren't familiar with Boal or Theatre of the Oppressed, could you just sum up a little more about what that structure is?
Yeah, he wrote 6 books about it, and I wrote my PhD about the development or the expansion of the homogeneous model into a polarized model. So I will try to sum it up. First of all, there's a great quote by him that everybody can act, even actors. And it means that we are all actors, we are all artists, and this is something that I think Sangeeta and Ines and all of us in ITAC are sharing, that that we are all artists, and it doesn't mean that we are all experts or that everybody should be expert, but we all have the capacity and the passion to express ourselves, and we all have art inside us. So the thing is that theater was taken from us as a means of, or as a weapon, non-violent weapon, to release, to free ourselves individually and collectively. So the idea is to bring back the art and the theater to people, to release themselves, to find ways how they are being oppressed through the medium, to understand how they can release, in Rainbow of Desire, for example, technique, how we internalize the oppression, and inform theater collectively to witness and to see, to observe what is the oppression made of, not what the human being or the subject is suffered from, but what is allowing this system of oppression to work and to make this suffer happen. So when we are performing, when I say, you know, I was a major in the Israeli army, and I was in terrible situation of violence. What does it mean? Or I'll give you just one example that we do theater that is based on photos. So I asked the group, the Israelis and the Palestinians, to bring photos. Both of them brought photos of their heroes in life. So Sima, who is a Palestinian woman, brought a photo of people with khaki uniform, kafiyas, and M16. And Owen was an Israeli who brought the same picture with people with khaki uniform and M16. And both groups did an image of these pictures, and the reading of the images on stage was, these are monsters, violent people, soldiers who are, or people, armed people who are killing innocent people, and so on and so on and so on. But if an alien would have come from the space, it would see almost the same picture. So performing these images and reflecting each other and try to now create, I ask both groups now, can you do this photo as you think the other group sees it? And then all of a sudden they have to imagine, to put themselves in the shoes of the other and embody a soldier with an M16, which is not my enemy, it's my own, I'm part of this. So just a quick example of what does it mean to perform to each other and to embody on stage the other. This is in itself a transformation.
Thank you so much. As Hen said, there is a massive body of work that unpacks this, and then Hen has adapted the framework and invented this sort of newer system. So thank you to those in the chat who are putting those context bits and links and names for Googling. We have about 2 minutes left for the Q&A. So I would like Sangeeta and Ines, if you could give a minute each even, just to the question, how do you approach displaced populations or communities that you're not part of? So Sangeeta, you mentioned the COVID project where you travel around to tackle disinformation. And Ines, you mentioned the touring model around the different places. I wonder if you could each just super briefly talk to your approach on that.
Shall I go first?
Yes, you go.
Okay. So I've worked with refugee populations in Europe, mainly from Afghanistan, Iraq, from North Africa, West Africa, Pakistan, and also internally displaced populations in India, tribal populations, ethnic violence populations. And there is no one size fits all. The first thing one needs to do is spend time and off time, eat together, play with the kids, right? You need to spend time. You can't go and do a quick fix 1 hour workshop and leave if you want to give something of more value. So I typically spend a recce trip where I spend a week or sometimes more just watching and observing and doing all kinds of interventions, right? A lot of it is around gender-based violence, because with my experience, I know that most of the, especially the women and the children, have been through sexual abuse, sexual violence, and all of that is held in the body. So we do a lot of dancing, body opening, yoga, and then I'll weave in mindfulness, meditation techniques to bring some idea of how I can lean towards happiness. Even in the biggest suffering, we can teach ourselves, and all of us have faced suffering, right? And we can all teach ourselves to lean towards some space of happiness that you can create for yourself. So these are certain staples that I do. I do a lot of work. It's hilarious. Like I would be sitting in France, in a refugee camp, and the Afghans would find the West Africans too black. The West Africans would find the Iraqis not speaking French and uneducated. The Iraqis would find the Afghans to be tribal and uneducated. So even within the same mess, you're all in the same shit, you still start making clicks. That is also the condition of being human, because you enter this space of fear and there's only this much resources. So your mind is in a notion of scarcity. So then my first job is to create the space where everybody can get together, play, exchange, and then, like Hen was saying, two photos, family photos might look the same because what binds you together is humanity, and we all are startlingly similar in what we aspire towards. So my first thing would be I watch, I interact, I try to learn different languages. Indians have this facility because we are surrounded by languages, so I try to pick up more words. I rope in translators among the population, and then slowly start making a mosaic, bringing people together.
Thank you.
That works. Yeah.
Thank you, Sangeeta. And Ines, I'm afraid you have about 30 seconds to answer the same question.
Well, let's be short. For many years, many is like 15 years, 18 years, we run cultural centers in a specific territory, in the outskirts of Buenos Aires, in very poor slums. But now we do not have a territory, because what we did is that everything we learned about doing differently was built a methodology and a didactics that is a preparation of the environment for learning. And this is for public schools. And we do a preparation for the therapeutic approach through art. And this is for community health spaces. So it's not that we have one territory. We work in Argentina and we work in Latin America, training teachers, social workers, psychologists in 30 hours workshop or 80 hours workshops that are half in presence workshops and the other completely digital. I mean, we do it by the internet. And some of the workshops are completely, I mean, we cannot teach 80 teachers in Mexico from Buenos Aires traveling. So we do it in our campus and it's virtual, completely virtual.
Thank you. Well, we are officially out of time, but thank you everyone so much for joining. I hope, like me, you were just absolutely astonished by the discussion. There's going to be some wrap-up comments in 2 seconds from the IDG team, but I'd like to encourage all of you to stay in touch with ITAC. These are 3 just phenomenal practitioners, but there is also a network of 5,000 people all over the world doing similar projects, and I would love to bring that more centrally into the implementation of the IDG community and framework. So please do remain in touch and stay connected. And I hope we all have the chance to be in a space together again. So thank you very much, Hannah.
Thank you. Ines, I did not forget about the poem. Give me 2 minutes. Give me 2
I did forget about the poem.
That's completely fine. That's why we are a team, right? So first of all, wow. Thank you for, first of all, this incredible work that you are doing, for leading the way, for stepping up, for spreading hope, but not also that, for acting and embodying, I would say, what the IDG framework is also standing for. I feel very privileged to be here in this session and to meet incredible people like you. Together with all of you participating here. I would now like to, before we hear the poem that magically appeared over the last hour from our contributions in the very beginning of our gathering today, I would like to just mention a few points coming from the IDGs. First of all, we do have an amazing summit coming up on 16th to 18th of October, happening in Stockholm and online. And at the moment, we have early bird tickets that are available, a limited batch of it, still available until March 5. So I will share in a second a link in the chat where you can get those tickets. And I'm also allowed to share my wonderful colleagues Katarina's email address, because we are looking for stories, for people, for projects, artists, any kind of expressions of this narrative that we are trying to spread there in a development for outer impact. So if you have any ideas, please don't hesitate to share them and co-create together with us. I will share the links in a second with you. We also still have the one question survey out. So we are at the moment scouting for answers, working on a survey for the question, what qualities, abilities, or skills do we need to develop to build a sustainable future for people and planet? Currently we have about a little bit more than 11,000 answers, and our goal is to reach 100,000. So we are looking for people to respond, of course. So in case you have not responded, then please do so. I will also share the link in a minute. We are also looking for spreading the word around the one question survey. So if you can share it over social media, over your networks, through your events, whatever, please help us to spread the word around that. We also have a masterclass coming up on May 13th with Phoebe Tickle. If you have been at the summit last year, you've probably all heard her speaking on moral imagination. And Phoebe will do a masterclass together with us in May on that topic. We will send out the info. It's not out yet, so it's very fresh. We will share the info also with you in the follow-up email that will be sent out next week. And there is a party coming up because in all of this craziness in the world, we can't forget to sometimes celebrate. And we do have our 3rd year anniversary of the IDG movement happening on 14th of May in the afternoon. So there will be an option to join online. If you would like to join, please block it in your calendar already. It's going to happen between 3 and 5 p.m. Central Eastern Europe time. So in case you would like to join us there, you are, of course, very, very welcome to do so. So now, Ines, do I hand over to you, or who will share the poem with us?
Luli's going to share the poem so
Luli,
we hear
my dear.
everyone's voice. Yes.
Thank you very much. That was beautiful. So yeah, let's all give a collective applause like this to all of us, especially to Madeline, to Ines, to Sangeeta, and to Chen, but also to all of you participating, taking the time and yeah, opening up today.